Folks, the hour of 7:30 has arrived, so I'd like to call to order this study session of District 116 for June 6th, 2017. Roll call, please.
Member Carter?
Here.
Member Hall?
Here.
Member Patton?
Here.
Member Fisher is here, and President Demmett.
Here. We do have a quorum present. Are there, I'm aware of one correction to this evening's agenda in that 11.02 will be deferred until a later date. Any other additions or corrections to the agenda?
We do have one commendation or recognition that didn't actually get written on here, but I'll cover that when we get to 7.0.
All right. Any citizen statements this evening? Anyone that wishes to address the board?
Oh, we need to approve the agenda. Oh,
Not
it
quite
comes
yet.
later. That's right. That's
Anyone who
6:20.
wishes to address the board, please fill out a goldenrod sheet and come forward. I'd like to take advantage of this opportunity while you're doing that to thank Joey Wright, a true professional who's back this evening to run the cameras for us to make sure everyone at home can watch us. Joey being a rising senior at Urbana High School this year. Seeing no citizens that wish to address the board, there is no call for an executive session after this evening's agenda, so a motion to approve the agenda as modified would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. We're now ready for your commendation.
So if I could have Jill Lagerstam come up to the
Sorry, we're not more in numbers.
microphone.
Yeah.
Come up, you can sit there, and then I promised her I would not spend too much time on this. But we did have a small ceremony in May that recognized Jill Lagerstam, who is the most recent award winner of the Amberg Award for Teaching Excellence.
Oh, excellent.
And so
Yeah.
while we celebrated in front of the whole staff, we kind of hijacked one of Mr. Stark's staff meetings because the way this award is given at the CU Schools Foundation, if you remember, is the designee, the custodian of the award.
Yeah.
And so they go through the process of soliciting nominations, and Jill's nomination was an incredibly strong nomination, and one of my favorite pieces of the nomination was a letter from a former student that talked about how Jill not only pushed her in class, but also pushed her outside of class. And I fail if I didn't say this. Jill is an art teacher at Urbana High School. This student has displayed artwork in shows all around town, and most recently I got to see the student's artwork at the AP Honors Art Show over at the Cranert Art Museum's Kincaid Pavilion. And so if you want to see some outstanding student artwork, you can go over there and see some of the results of the talent that Jill fosters in her students. And so
And
Go for
I
it.
got a student to sell a piece of art to Donna once.
Oh,
So
yeah.
put that out
So,
there.
yeah, absolutely.
which, if you have her phone number, you can bug her a little
Yes,
bit.
I
will.
We're still working on that.
But-
No, but again, this award, for those of you that don't remember, is what's called an endowed chair, and it means that Ms. Lagerstam will get a stipend that goes to her, and then the high school also gets a small stipend for having the teacher who has this endowed chair, and it's a 3-year chair, which means that the stipend is a repeat for 3 years. And Lori's not here to correct me, so I'm going to say that this is our 4th or 5th.
Uh-huh.
Is this our 4th or 5th? 4th.
Yeah.
4th Amberg
Wonderful.
winner for teaching excellence. So congratulations, Jill, and we won't require a speech.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have administrative briefings and reports, and it's our food service update from Aramark for the year.
Right. So Carrie's going to come up and present the Aramark food service update. We try and do it once a semester to keep the board updated on our food service. And we have also,
So
make
it's
sure
a
you're getting it up there.
semi-yearly
There it
Sorry,
is. We also have some kind of preview of what's coming next year, thanks to Candace Gwynn, principal of Wiley, who piloted some things for us this spring. So I'll let Carrie talk about that. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Carrie Perkins, Food Service Director for Aramark and for Urbana School District. First thing, I've got a summary slide where we're just going to tell you what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about our 16-17 new cycle school year menus. Of course, they're the end of them at this point, which includes our breakfast and our lunch program, after-school snack program, Urbana Early Childhood, and our supper programs. Meal participation, we're going to discuss that. Fuel promotions, Harvest of the Month program that we do, our audits that we had this year, BATB, so nobody wonders. I tried to hide it at the beginning. It's breakfast after the bell, but we are going to talk about that. Grants, additional items, and special days. So every year we talk about the fact that we've redid our cycle menus. So Aramark has some dietitians way above us who make a menu that's compliant with all the National School Lunch Program regulations, and they send it down to us and say, tweak it, make sure it stays in compliance. So every year we get new products from vendors and whatnot. So we go out, we look at everything, say Urbana School kids, what do they like, what will be the best for them. So we redid our new lunch menu, or had new lunch menus. We redid our breakfast menus. There were a few new items this year, not as many as we've had in the years past, but there were definitely some new ones. Cheesy bacon baked potatoes, which actually went over very well. They had the option of broccoli, cheesy baked potatoes, or bacon, and at some schools we did both because of the vegetarian option, but the bacon ones the kids were going crazy over. Chili cheese max burritos, we did a vegetarian chili for a little while, then we switched it to beef chili based on some of the kids requesting. We came up with a new fresh menu item. We're doing that fruit and cheese yogurt platter that the kids love. To give a second option to a kind of the same meal, we did a bagel with cream cheese with mozzarella stick with a grain in there, and then new salads this year as well. We kept our vegetarian items on every single day, 3 to 5 times a week. We do at least 2 options every single day, including at our elementary schools. Middle school and high school actually get more than that. We do a 4-week cycle menu for our breakfast. New items this year was the whole grain glazed donut, which sometimes we get shot for that one. But the kids absolutely, that became their favorite item in our highest selling days when we put that on. It is a whole grain item. It is compliant and everything. But the donuts got taken away years ago when the new regulations went into place. And so now they've come up with one that actually meets. So we did put that back on for the kids so that they can have that. Apple Bosco sticks as well. Those were pretty popular. We did a new supper menu, 5 sites. We do 2 cold menus a week, 2 hot menus a week. And Urbana Early Childhood, this year, they did supper 2 sessions. So last year at this meeting, we talked about how Urbana Early Childhood had piloted supper just in a 9-week session. This year, they did a session in the spring, or in the fall, and then another session in the spring. So it went over well, and they were pretty happy with that. After school snack program menus, we did a 5-week cycle menu. Some of the new items, they came up with a Crave s'mores pack and Golden Graham cereal bars. When I go through the menus from year to year to see what the new items were, those were some of the new items that we chose this year. Urbana Early Childhood menus, going back to their snack menu, not the supper menu that we just talked about, they actually asked me to come over and meet with a small group to revamp them. Their menus, they have the little guys, and sometimes with the little guys, some items are harder or easier for them. So I met with a small group over there, and we revamped the entire menu about March. They wanted more fruits and vegetables, not necessarily fresh, but even like mandarin oranges and things that come in the cups. And then specific feedback on certain foods, like our chocolate muffins are really crumbly, so they go everywhere. But the banana ones are much better. So just listening to the teachers and then revamping the menus based on what they would like us to do. Meal participation, breakfast. I don't have the 2014-15 percentage up there, but if you guys remember over the years, the ones that's been here, it was about a 10.5% increase that year. That was the year that we did a major revamp on our menus for the first time since I had been here. We got a 10% jump that first year, 20% the second year. That's when we went to CEP. The third year, this year, we're at a 2.1, which makes me sad, except for you can only grab those 10 to 20% so many years in a row. The 2.1% is about average from year to year, with everything else kind of staying the same. Breakfast incentives, we offer incentives at some of the schools, middle school, Dr. Williams, Thomas Payne are really taking advantage of this, where we can do like pastries with parents, and we get to claim the meals that the kids eat so that the school district doesn't have to pay for those meals when they do separate caterings. And we just make it a compliant, reimbursable meal for the kids. We also did park testing where we fed breakfast in the classroom, or breakfast snack in the classrooms. For all the park testing in the elementary, every day, every kid had testing, they received a snack from us that morning. Something like a muffin and a juice pouch. And then we did a breakfast in the classroom pilot, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Meals participation for lunch, same exact thing. That 2014-15, we gained about an 8% increase that year, jumped to a 10% increase when we went to CEP, and we had 3.7% increase this year. So altogether, when you look at lunch participation of almost 500,000 meals, adding it to the breakfast participation of 274,000 meals, plus all the snacks, which is about 85,000, our suppers, which is about 25,000, we're feeding over 800,000 meals every year in Urbana School District. Pizza parties in the classroom and even at the parks. This year, one of the schools, can't remember if it was Wiley or if it was Yankee Ridge, but we delivered pizzas to Carl Park for the kids that were having a pizza party there. Instead of them ordering from a name brand delivery company, we can deliver them and we get to claim them as meals, just like they would be eating in the schools. Kids see it come in a box, they think it's coming from one of those other places, and they're good pizzas. So it's exciting that we can help with budgets and whatnot in all those areas. They're reimbursable meals, plus they come with the fruits, the vegetables, and they are whole grain, which is better than some of the other places they could be eating from. Fuel promotions, I'm not going to go into detail on all of the different themes, but a fuel promotion is middle school and high school. Every month we do new menu items. We offer them for a week long. It's a brand new recipe. We have a chef named Chef Wayne. He's the Aramark chef, and he produces new menu items every month and sends them out to us. We run them for a week long on top of our normal menu so that it kind of shakes up the menu a little bit and lets kids have different items and try the new recipes. If it goes over really well, we incorporate it onto our menu. And so these are the different things that we tried. Some of them kind of get way out there in their recipes and in their ingredients. Other ones are staples that the kids love. So you guys can look through that list later if you want to see some of our different items. Harvest of the month, we do this every single year. We've been doing this for about 3 years now, where we specialty a fruit or vegetable on the menu. And we end up, I'm going to go to the next slide real quick. We end up posting some family newsletters and community documents out on the website every single month when we post the menus. And it's all about that special fruit or the vegetable of the month. We do it in English and Spanish every single month. And have lots of documentation out there. Plus on the menu, it tells the parents to go there to get those items if they would like them. So we try to communicate with the parents as well that they're out there. But these are some of the different fruits and vegetables that we had each of these months. Some of these things are on our menus all the time. Some of the things are not, and it's just something different for the kids to try. Nutrition program audits. This is different than the last couple presentations that I've given. We actually had audits in every area of our program this year. We had our administration audit, which is something that used to happen every 3 years, or 5 years, now it happens every 3 years. In December 2016, they visited King Elementary and Thomas Paine Elementary. I swear she had some kind of radar gun to know that those were where my 2 new leads were for this school year. But we passed it. Everything was good. There was no fiscal action deemed to Urbana School District. And so they are going to be here to do our summer programs sometime in the next 3 weeks as well, which is part of that audit as well. We went through a resource management audit, which Ms. Baker and I are in the process of finishing right now. She might have just finished it today, where they audit our non-program foods, which is basically a la carte items and any adult items that we sell. They want to make sure that the school district is positive in the balances on all of those items. If we're buying a bag of chips, that we're not selling it for less than what we're paying to purchase it. So they audit all those areas, our revenues and expenses, same with adult meals. They want to make sure that the adult meals are priced accordingly as well. And then they do what they call a PLE tool, which is paid lunch equity. They want to make sure that we've priced our meals to the students appropriately compared to the reimbursements that are coming back from the free and reduced meals. We are exempt from that because we're CEP and we don't have meal prices for our students. So we got out of that one, thank goodness. Procurement review is actually going on in this month. They want to audit the school district's purchasing policies, the code of conduct policies, and bidding compliance to make sure that we are up to par on all of those in our nutrition program as well. So we have had audits all year, basically all year long in this program. But once we're done, we get 2 years without any and we'll be good to go.
That's good.
Here's the interesting one. Breakfast after the bell mandate. I don't know how much you guys have heard about this, but new school year 17 and 18, breakfast after the bell is mandated via the state of Illinois. Any school district that is over 70% free and reduced is mandated to offer a breakfast after the bell program. They gave us 3 options. There was 4 options on the page. There was breakfast in the classroom, breakfast carts in the hallway, or nutritional break after the first period. The 4th one said something else creative that you come up with that will meet our compliance. And so I left that one up here, but there was an option that we can come up with something, but it's got to meet certain criteria. All students must be offered breakfast after the bell rings. It can't just be those students that are running in late. And that's where it gets tricky. Because we were thinking, okay, there's a lot of kids late in our schools, you know, every day. So what if we just offered them breakfast out of the office? Did not meet the mandate. We went to trainings and whatnot to figure out exactly what this meant. And they were saying if we have to offer it to every single student after the bell rings. So I got together with administration to decide what would be the best thing to do. We came up with in our elementary schools, we would do breakfast in the classrooms, and in our middle school, high school, we would have breakfast carts stationed at the popular doors where the kids are coming in to try to hit everybody before and after the bell rings is where they'll be sitting there. 15, 20 minutes afterwards, and then we'll roll them in. Middle school and high school is going to look a little bit different. Traditional breakfast will still be served in the middle school and high school in the cafeteria. We're serving 300 to 350 kids a day in those 2 schools. You don't really want to take them out of the cafeteria and put them into those hallways. You want to let them sit and eat their traditional hot breakfast. There's only so much you can offer on those carts. So it's going to be really for the kids that are running by, grabbing that breakfast that didn't have time, you know, when they were coming in to go into the cafeteria. So we're still going to do traditional breakfast in the middle school, high school. Breakfast after the bell mandate, we decided let's come up with a pilot school. Out of a hat, kind of, Wiley Elementary was chosen. That's how I'll say that. We did the pilot from May 1st to May 25th. We had multiple meetings, February, March, April, with administration or principals or whomever. I went over and met with Candace to get it all prepared. There are breakfast bags for each room, a hot bag and a cold bag. Reusable laminate rosters for each classroom, which I'll show you in just a second, and then a breakfast garbage can for each room. So the food service staff preps these bags in the morning, delivers them to each of the classrooms by 8 a.m. Teachers have their students get the breakfast items that they want and sit and eat breakfast at their desks. When they're finished, they push the bags into the hallway, along with pushing that garbage can into the hallway that they have thrown all their garbage into. Food service staff and custodians come by, collects all of the items. Food service staff brings in the students' breakfast after it's all done and cleaned up. It looks really simple there. We put a lot of effort into planning it in advance and getting it to kind of go off with no hitches. I'm going to let Candace talk a little bit about how it went in her building.
So it went very well at Wiley. So we met with teachers. We kind of had everything pre-planned with Carrie. She did a lot of the front work, and so everything went smoothly.
That's good to hear.
As feedback came through, we would correct it or figure out what we needed to do about that feedback. I think the first day, everybody was kind of like, whew, went way better than we thought it was going to.
Well, at first they weren't, but then when it was finished,
Yes.
when that breakfast period was done, people were like, what were we so nervous about?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Part of
Thanks to
the-
Carrie, I think, too.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
Yeah.
She did a lot of work on this, so I want to commend you on that. But I think there was a lot of hesitation by teachers, thinking this is going to take out of instructional time, how are we going to fit this in? And we kept telling them, you're going to see the benefits of this if you allow this to go. And I think Candace can tell you that.
Well, I had a follow-up meeting after where I offered for teachers to come back if they had any concerns or anything, and no one showed up. One person came and we just talked, because I said, did you have any concerns? And she said, no, I just want to hear if anybody else had any concerns, and that was it. It was an empty library. So, I mean, that never happens.
Yeah,
So-
that's true.
Have you seen any change behavior-wise in kids as far as, or I think even tardiness?
Well, I don't have that data, but I know that the teachers are saying that they were surprised at how many more students are eating breakfast. And see, I wasn't surprised at that, but they were like, more of our kids are choosing to eat breakfast in the morning. And so there is a lot of research out there about the positive effects of making sure that students eat before they start their school day.
So 2 things to add to that is that at the very beginning, that very first day, it was kind of a little crazy. We got through it. Everybody was excited. The second day, there was nobody absent to school, or nobody late to school. And so the secretaries came down to me and were like, I want to hug you, I want to kiss you, because we think this is because of this program. Of course, the third day it
Right.
rained really bad, and there was 25 kids late.
Huh.
So they didn't necessarily love me on that day, but they were excited thinking. So what the theory is that the kids are out on that playground playing, and like 3 minutes before the bell rings, they're running in to get their breakfast, and then they're gonna sit at that table in that cafeteria, and then go to class late, 10 to 15 minutes late. So now they get to stay out on the playground, play with their kids until the bell rings, and then go inside, and everybody goes inside and they still get breakfast. They don't have that panic of, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna get to eat. So they all get to come in when the bell rings, sit down orderly, and eat breakfast. So there's less kids coming tardy because of the playgrounds to the cafeteria to the classroom. Less disruption.
So this is a state mandate?
Illinois state mandate. Anybody over 70%.
Huh.
Well, you began to address the thing that instantly came to mind with me, which is another demand on instructional time. And instructional time already in American school system is less than it is in other developed countries. And we're still doing something. So Carol, you began to touch on that a little bit.
I think what, Candace can speak to that, but I think what they do is the teachers are using that time while the kids are reading to do a lot of their morning routines, attendance and things like that.
The attendance and lunch counts and stuff. They have those bags in that hallway by 8:30, which is when they go to that first class, which is the
Fine arts,
Yeah.
usually. Or they start literacy.
Yeah.
So a lot of our teachers had a math problem of the day on the board, or they had a read aloud going via audio. So like an audio book or something where the students were able to engage. Some of them have technology to have books being read aloud through the smart board, through projectors and things like that. So it would be like a traditional read aloud, but just eating breakfast too. Or a problem of the day, and then you also have kids that are eating too.
All
So we
right.
still did have announcements and things like that.
It just still bugs me
Yeah.
that the state keeps mandating that we do things through our day without giving us any money to extend the day, and that we keep having to pack more and more and more and more into a day, and then expect our children to continue to learn at the same rate when there's
Yeah.
bunches of stuff that they've got to do all day long that isn't necessarily what I consider to be the narrow mission of the schools. So
Yeah.
I
mean,
think
my question is
Peggy
sort of
refers-
similar. Well, I mean,
You
it was
refer
just-
to it as mission creep.
Yeah, mission creep. Well, I mean, I was just wondering what problem were we solving? Was this something that many of the school districts were saying, we've got a real problem, kids aren't eating breakfast, we need to find a way to, and so schools were saying, demanding this, or was this completely top down, or Springfield up, I guess? And is it a problem, an invented problem that someone decided this needed to be solved? I mean, where
So
did it
I can't
originate?
answer that exactly, and I don't know, Carrie, if you can or not, without speculation, but I will say that from talking to other superintendents, this was not something that came from the superintendent organizations as strong advocacy that this should happen. However, I can say that from a lot of research out there, and Candace spoke to this a little bit, that there is a lot of research out there about students being more effective learners if they've had a healthy breakfast. And what I will say from personal experience, I was over there 3 or 4 times in the first 2 weeks, watching both the play outside on the playground, which was, I would say, much more active than usual because there were more kids out there. They were having more fun. Teachers were sometimes leading more organized games because everyone was out on the playground. And granted, it was May, and we had a beautiful May, so that was helpful. But at the same time, students then came in and transitioned very quickly into the activity and breakfast. And as both Carrie and Candace said, the instructional time was getting started between 8:25 and 8:30. Like they were completely done, cleaned up, and moving forward with their day, which is about what time they'd be done with their morning routine of lunch counts and attendance and everything else. The teachers were doing that. The teachers weren't really administering the breakfast or monitoring the breakfast as much as anything else. And so I would say that there's quite a bit of research out there about a healthy breakfast helps student learning. And so in that case, you know, I was seeing some of that firsthand in going around and observing. And as Candace said, you know, the complaints from the teachers were what you'd expect, with the exception of they were much less than what I think any of us expected. We all went into this kind of white knuckles because it is a state mandate. It wasn't something the district was saying, hey, we're doing this, you know. But it actually went very smoothly, and I applaud Wiley, the entire staff, and Candace for raising your hand and saying, we'll do this. I don't think there was much arm twisting, was there? No, I didn't think so.
Because she wasn't there.
Well, I think this district always does a good job at managing the mandates. My critical comment is not aimed at the district or aimed at you. It's just the fact that the state continues to put these rules on us and expects us to comply when they can't even pass a dang budget and can't even get the money to us that they owe us. And I just wonder what you know, why, you know, why this? And for schools that aren't CES, this would be a real pain in the butt and a real expense.
Yeah, we went to a meeting in Springfield where some of the schools in the room were not CEP, and they have
Or
to do
CEP.
it. It's okay, they have to do it, and they don't have necessarily, they have to charge the parents in the classrooms who are gonna eat. And there's a lot of schools, we brought in Decatur, they've actually started breakfast in the classroom before the mandate, and I think they have 18 elementary schools. And so they went on a 3-year plan to do 6 schools each year. And so that first year was rocky and everybody was worried. And by the time they got to the second year, the schools were saying, can we get it? Can we get it? And so by the time they got to the third year, everything's running smoothly. The only other thing to note is that there was one teacher at one staff member in Thomas Paine who had stood up and said, hey guys, calm down just a minute. Let me tell you about my experience in this other school district where we had breakfast in the classroom. And it actually helped the kids pay attention all the way up until lunchtime. It reduced the referrals in the class. She was making awesome points for us to have to come in and, you know, wipe
I
our
fully
butts.
understand the value of breakfast. I spent 12 years trying to teach 2 young men the value of eating breakfast before going to school. So one is a good breakfast eater, and the other one doesn't think he needs any food until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I understand.
Yeah. One note I did not put on here, Wiley is our smallest school with enrollment. We did go from about 130 a day breakfast to about 210 a day. And so there's a lot more children in our school eating breakfast in the classroom. That doesn't mean that they weren't eating breakfast at home before, but we know we're feeding about 88% of our students in that school right now. So we'll see what happens next year and what. So, thank you, Candace.
Thank you, Candace.
The next one is just some pictures.
One more question from Ruth Ann.
Unless we need to wait further into your presentation, you started talking about the other schools and X amount of classrooms and whatever, so are you going to get around to tell us what we have to do in a certain time period? Is that coming up later?
Just at the very beginning, new to 17, 18, we have to start it all on day 1, all schools. Which we've met with all the principals who's supposed to have went back and had meetings with the teachers and whatnot at each of these buildings. So it's not new news out there to the administration.
Flyers were sent home.
And some of the principals came to visit Wiley too.
Oh, okay.
Flyers were sent home with the kids, so the kids, I mean, we had a 1-pager that we sent home, so.
Okay, and then
Parents
just one other question. What about the cleanliness in the rooms? Because for a long time, we wanted to keep our buildings as clean as possible and only have food in the designated areas so that we're not inviting critters to come munch overnight or before the janitors can get in or whatever. So
That's why
what
we
is
have
this
that-
going to look like?
Sorry, that's why we have that dedicated garbage can to where everything goes in that garbage can, and that garbage can is rolled out and picked up every morning.
And then tabletops and things like that? Is there additional having to wipe up, clean up?
I know they talked to Oda about having a spray bottle in the classrooms, but I don't know that they've needed that much. I don't know if Candace found that they had a need to have those, but they did ask for them in the beginning.
That was one of, and when we had our first meeting, that was one of the, like you said, one of the main questions. And so we made sure they had the materials as far as use, and I haven't, haven't had time to collect that data, but they have the materials they need to make sure, and then things have just really run smoothly. If they needed something else, they would have said, I need this.
Okay.
We tried to pre-plan as much as we could, and we had all of the people at the table could help us with all those individual pieces. So this is just a picture, guys, to show you on the left is the bags, what the bags look like. Our 2 employees on one big cart. This is half the building, so we roll it down, drop the bag in each of the classrooms. The side on the left, we put the roster down inside, so the teacher comes in, pulls the roster out, and it's a laminated roster, so they just literally circle with our pen that we've got in there what kids eat, and then we can wipe it clean, put it right back in, so reuse, so there's no waste paper, no rosters, none of that stuff.
Good.
This is inside the bag. You can't see it as great on here as you can potentially on the screens, the computer screens. But these are our containers to where the crate is built with the milk and the juice in it. They can literally unzip it, leave it right there in the crate. They don't have to lift that. They pull out these 2 little pans that's got even the cut fresh fruit. Those are fresh oranges cut there in little bags. Or the cereal with the cheese stick that's in the other one. So they pull the pans out, put them right on the table. It takes 2 seconds. The kids go by, pick up what they want, and sit right down. So I was visiting one classroom watching it happen during attendance. So it was a substitute that day. So when he called the name, the kid came up, got their items, went right back and sat down. And so that's how he took attendance that day. Grants. Let's talk about something positive. I came to Carol and to Dawn about applying for the school year 17 equipment grant this year. We had to apply in November. You're allowed up to $50,000 at each school. So we did an assessment to see what was needed. We applied for and were fully awarded $46,196.28, which is what we applied for on the grant. We're going to purchase the items this summer. What we are going to receive are 6 new proofer warmer cabinets at the middle school. The renovation at the middle school was done, I think, about 20 years ago or close to that. Is it less than that? 2002? 15 years ago.
Okay.
Oda was telling me our warmers are the biggest thing that they are putting money in to replace. And so the doors fall off because we open them 30 times in a day. Screws are coming out. The kids are playing with them on the backside. They need to be replaced. They're huge money costs for us. So we're getting 6 new warmers, and then a new combi oven is the other thing. Constantly leaks, creating write-ups on the health department. Even though we're putting money in to try to get that fixed, it won't fix. So we just did a grant to buy brand new items, so we don't have to worry about those anymore. Preston Williams, I added in the extra $7,000, it was almost 10 actually, sorry, for an additional oven due to the growth. That school now has almost 500 kids in it, and we've still only got 1 oven. So we're in a situation right now because of the hood. We're even gonna have to extend the hood or figure out where we can put the second oven. But I'm gonna work with Oda this summer on trying to figure out where, how we're gonna get that in there. But we did get the funding to purchase a second oven. We might take out the stove, put the oven in, because the ovens are more important having that many kids in our buildings. $46,196. We have applied because of the breakfast after the bell for some breakfast grants. We applied for $24,000 for Action for Healthy Kid grant, $3,000 for each school. Just got notification that all 8 schools got their $3,000. Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry grants. We applied for $40,000. So far, we've received $20,000. Because Wiley was starting May 1st, they quickly did half of our applications. The other ones are still in review right now. So we've got a secured $20,000, $40,000 potential. $5,000 for each school. Wiley, Leal, Preston, and the middle school have been awarded already, waiting on the other 4. Dollars for dairy grants. We've actually are working on those grants right now. They should be done by the end of this week. $2,000 for each of the schools. Grants are due by the 19th. We're applying for all 8. We have a potential for $126,000 in grants this summer between the breakfast and the classroom grants, or not breakfast, breakfast after the bell grants and the equipment grants. We've already received 20, 44, 40, about $90,000 in grants.
Oh, good.
Very exciting.
Thank you.
Additional items, commodities. This year funds returned 102%. Basically, the government says, hey, you have, I'm making up these numbers, $100,000 in commodities, and we're returning $102,000. They do an all open for fresh fruits and vegetables in May, and so we try to grab as much extra money that's other school districts that they have not used during those periods. So in other years past, we've been over 100% for the last 3 years, which is returning. The rule is you have to return 85%. So some school districts only are getting to 85, 90%, and we're hitting over 100 every year thus far, which is good. More money in the school district's budget back into their pockets. Student viewpoint survey, we did surveys for the kids. We're going to get the results later on this month. We gave away a $100 Best Buy gift card to the middle school, $100 gift card to the high school to try to get the kids to give us their feedback on that. When we receive those results, I read it and help incorporate that into next year's menus as well. Caterings, we had more caterings this year than we've ever did before. Steve Waller, as the new athletic director, reached out to us quite a bit. We did some sporting events at the Armory and at the middle school when they did wrestling and track tournaments. And we did the mentor banquet this year. We've added new menu items. So now we're doing Italian beef, we're doing barbecue pork, and so it just opens up a lot more of what we can do. It's very exciting that so many people are wanting to use our food for it. So that's something about our food service program as well with the kids. So. Aramark staff, I've not introduced Molly Smith, but this is Molly Smith sitting right here.
Molly.
Molly Smith has added a full-time salaried position to our staff in Urbana. She started in Urbana as our office clerk. She got promoted to be a director of Mahomet School District. Her family life changed, so she had to leave. She came back just about 3 weeks later, maybe 4 weeks later, and she had the choice. Do you want to go back to Mahomet or do you want to come to Urbana? And she said, please, can I come to Urbana? She really enjoyed our atmosphere of our school district. So we are very happy to have her back and happy to add a salaried position into our help, because as our program continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, it's more help that we need at my level. We'll be adding additional staff and hours for the Breakfast After the Bell initiative. We do continue to give a monthly attendance incentive for our staff when they have perfect attendance. They can choose between $30 bonus under their checks, shoes for crews, brand new shoes if they would like, or fleece jackets. And yearly we do perfect attendance award. I started this a couple years ago. That first year we only had 2. Second year we had 5, third year 9, and this year we had 12 people that had perfect attendance for the entire year.
Right.
So they are realizing that it is a value for us, for them to come to work every single day and help us feed the children. We do a $100 bonus onto their last paycheck if they are able to make it the entire year. Employee Appreciation Day, we celebrated employees with lunch and treats, and we did bonus dollar amounts where we draw their names out of the hat if they come to our meetings and give them money. Free samples. On the left, you'll see a sample plate. At our middle school and high school, we make up sample plates so the kids can see all the different items that they can have in that meal that day. So make sure we put on 2 vegetables, a fruit, a milk, and the cheeseburger, or the entree, sorry. And then on the right-hand side, we do free sampling to where when the kids come through, they can taste what we're going to have on the menu tomorrow, particularly in those fuel items, those new items that we're doing. We typically do it on a Friday for the next week, so they'll know, oh my gosh, this is coming, so I'm going to eat this next week when it comes on the menu. The only thing I didn't put in here, guys, that I do want to mention is we did start our summer program on Monday. We do have summer program offered in 4 of our schools, King, Preston Williams, the middle school, and the high school, June 5th to June 29th. High school is going to go until July 13th without having July 4th as a service day. And we offer breakfast and lunch to the students, enrolled students, and also the community, so anybody can come in. I think we looked up last year, there was about 9,400 meals that were served to our community, our enrolled kids and the community throughout the entire summer. So please come and enjoy that. WCIA is coming tomorrow to do an interview with Mr. Stark, and he will hopefully let all the parents know about all the places they can go and eat breakfast and lunch. Do you have any questions? Or the long one, sorry guys.
You just forgot our snacks tonight.
No, that's all right. We don't. You got it. You're, yeah.
And I'm just going to put in a plug for the Chicken Florentine flatbread pizza, because that's what the board needs to have the next time. Yes.
Okay.
Well, maybe not. So the summer program, I didn't realize it was open to the community. Is this the first year, or has that always been the case? It's always been. And I mean, you said WCIA is going to come and promote it, but how does the community outside of WCIA find out about that? Is it sort of?
So we send a menu home with all students in the elementary level, K through 5, on the very last day of school. So everybody got the menu, and it had each of the buildings at the top with the times and the dates that they could come.
Yeah.
So that's a way that we try to get to them. They did a press
We
release.
do press release.
and go ahead.
We have signs on every one of the school building. I mean, the
Okay.
doors of all the elementary schools, all the schools. And, I mean, we did a press release. There's a website that information is supposed to be on, but every year since we've been doing this, Urbana is never there. We call and complain every year. We're not sure why they don't include us.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we get left off.
Yeah.
And we aren't
We don't
left
know.
off this year, and there's actually quite a bit on social media. Our press release had more traction than I think any other press release that we've issued this spring. Smile Politely picked it up right away. News Gazette, WCIA, WDWS, they all picked it up, and as I said, social media has been picking up a lot of this idea of summer breakfast programs, and there's now, I just saw this on Facebook the other day, there's actually a number that you text this number in, and it'll tell you the closest location for breakfast summer programs to where you're located, which again is kind of creepy because somebody knows exactly where you're standing when you're texting things on your phone. And we've had teachers and families who at least have reported on social media that it works. That they've been doing this and they're like, hey, I thought this was a gimmick, but I did this, and boom, it said Urbana High School or Urbana Middle School. So.
And we've been doing it for several years, and it seems like in the beginning it was only us and maybe, I don't think Champaign did it. It was
Champaign
us
didn't
and
do it
maybe
the first year.
2 churches in town
Yeah.
and public health, and now it's really taken off, so.
Right. Yeah, the Urbana Neighborhoods Connection Center. Ms. Mitchell was supposed to come and present tonight, but she had a conflict, so she'll come and talk about the Connection Center in the fall. But the Connection Center is another site. So I believe Don Moyer Boys and Girls Clubs, all the Champaign schools, there are more and more that are sites.
And I'll be honest, when I got here 4 years ago, we would have maybe 2 community people show up, even though we promoted and tried to send things out and let people know, would not be a lot. Now, like on our first day, we had some kids show up at all the different buildings. And it's the first time that that's really happened, that on the first day. Normally it takes to the 3rd or the 4th day. But we've had more community in the last 2 years than we've ever had. So it's
Okay.
good. It's
Yeah.
getting out there.
No, it's
Families understand it and are utilizing it, which is good.
And just to clarify, Carrie, so this is open to school-age children,
18 and under.
18 and under.
Oh,
And so it's not like just people can wander in to the schools and eat. These are basically school-age children. For Urbana, since we serve 0 to 3, 3 to 5, and then 5 to 18, obviously it's pretty much any of our students.
They do allow SPED kids up to the age of 21 till their 22nd birthday is
Oh,
how the
okay.
rules read. And then 18 and under, anybody else in the community doesn't even have to be Urbana School District. So if you have cousins that come from California to visit for the whole summer, they can come in. We don't question who the kids are or where they're from. We just take them as they're under 18 and feed them their meals. So
I just want to make sure we're clear, it's for kids. This is not.
Yes,
18 and under,
yeah,
yes.
18 and under, unless they're special ed and they go up to 21.
Yep.
And it's breakfast and lunch on those weeks, June 5th to 29th.
Yep.
Yeah. Could I just ask one other question? I was just wondering, you didn't mention, thank you, you mentioned a lot of really good information. I was just wondering how the UHS new survey is going, if there's any surprises, positive or negative, things that like, we never anticipated such and such with the new survey at the high school.
I don't think there was really any
Okay.
positives or negatives. It's from the meeting that we had there, everything just kind of opened and ran all year. We
Going
didn't make
smoothly?
any changes.
Okay,
Lots of positives.
lots of positives, okay. No, okay. Well,
And that is because we did a survey, and the kids, the majority of them said tater tots, tater tots. We went to tater tots because they bake better than French fries do. French fries get soggy after a while, so we went to tater tots, and then I got in trouble.
Can't please everyone. Yeah, oh, wow. Out of 1,000 kids, yeah.
You're with Stark.
You're
I
with
listen to
Stark.
you, you know that. You tell me things, I do it. So we did do a survey with the kids
good, yeah.
about mid-year and made some changes. We did a whole new menu starting in January. And so, yeah, okay, next year there'll be more changes.
Well,
So thank you for that.
thank you very much.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Carrie.
Thank you.
Good?
Yeah.
Next,
Here we go.
next we'll move to policy reviews. We have Press Plus issue 94.
Yeah,
Thank
so
goodness it's only a one-pager. Our-
1 page, 2 sides. It's short, though. It's probably the shortest press policy update that I've had as superintendent. As for our viewing audience and members of the audience, Press is the subscription service that we have through the Illinois Association of School Boards that updates our policies for us based on changes in law, based on recommendations from member organizations. Let me just run through these really quickly because there aren't very many that are are big or things to wrestle with. But the first one is board member conflict of interest change. And that's actually changed because of federal legislation that tightens the language around issues of any government agency that issues or puts out awarding contracts or bids has to have new language in their written policies about avoiding conflicts of interest. So anyone who votes on such a contract cannot have any fiscal interest or be related to anyone that has a fiscal interest in the said contract. So that one is for board members. The exact same language follows through in 5.120 down the page a little ways called employee ethics and conflict of interest. So those two are together. 3.700 is succession of authority. This was a change that changed the word approve to submit. So in the past, the superintendent has had to have the board approve the succession of authority through an organizational chart. Now the language has been changed to just say that the superintendent has to submit the succession of authority. So back when I became superintendent, we had a succession of authority during my first month or so in the form of an organizational chart. You'll be getting a new one of those this coming year as we have changes in administration. And so you'll see that come up in August. 4:15 is identity protection. This policy has been updated based on changes in state law that basically require the district to report to any member of the public or the organization, any employee, if there's been any kind of breach in security. The change to this was to add things like online passwords and logins to personal identity protection. In the past, it's been a social security number, a bank account, a financial record. We've had to notify if there's been a breach of our records. It's now been expanded to include, expanded the definition of personal information to include logins and passwords to any student record or personnel record. Let's see, we already covered 5.120. 5.230 is cleanup of language around student discipline related to SB 100. As we see with the Press Plus, sometimes the first version of a new policy comes out and it needs a little cleanup. The language clarifies the fact that school officials are the ones who determine whether behavioral intervention is appropriate for a given student. I guess the language was a little unclear on that and made it sound like there was a state agency that determined whether interventions were appropriate. And so this clarifies that it's actually the school principal that determines if interventions are appropriate for an individual student. 5.300 is just simply a change in the reference regarding schedules in the employment year to reflect changes in state law related to the Right to Breastfeed Act. 670, teaching about religions. It's not a new policy, but we've always had a policy in our board policy under curriculum content that talks about how religions can be taught in schools. Interestingly, the word religion itself wasn't ever in the policy. It always talked about religious beliefs. And so they inserted the word religion in there to talk about the fact that you can teach not just about religious beliefs, but about religions as entities or organizations or belief systems. So just to clarify, as a history teacher, I appreciate the significance of that. And then 7.100 is probably the most lengthy explanation because it's the one that has the most comments from our attorneys. It's a proposed change related to changes in legislation and regulations, for the Illinois Department of Health requirements, requiring them to revise the child health examination form, which is commonly called a school physical form. It requires that form be updated to put on a complete developmental scale as well as a social emotional screening. Well, that requirement is on the Illinois Department of Public Health, not on the schools. And so what our attorneys said is that they wanted us to be very careful about which version of this policy we adopted so that we're not taking on more, as John would call, mission creep or unfunded mandates by saying that we would be responsible for doing those screenings when it's actually the intent of the law that it will be a healthcare provider of some kind that will be required to do those screenings. So when it has there about the board's attorneys recommend not adopting optional language until after the Department of Public Health creates the rules and regulations, that is why. Obviously, as an administrator, I support this change to have universal screening for social, emotional, and developmental issues, but I also support what the attorneys are saying about making sure that the intent of the law is followed through and that's it doesn't come back to us. So if there are questions about this, please let me know. These will be in front of you for approval on the June 20th board meeting.
Okay. Any immediate questions? All right. Refer any ones that you have in between time to Don so that they can be resolved so this can be voted on at our next meeting. We're now ready to move forward to 10.0, which is our action items, and we just have one tonight, which is the intergovernmental agreement for services between the school district and the Urbana Free Library. This is an MOU, so once the motion is in order, we'll be doing a roll call vote.
Yeah, so I'll just give a quick summary. This was actually supposed to be on the last business meeting, and we just left it off by accident. If you remember, Celeste Choate came, Director of Urbana Free Library. This is something we've been working on for almost 2 years now to get a memorandum of understanding, or I'm sorry, MOU / intergovernmental agreement. It's actually technically an intergovernmental agreement on here, if you notice at the top. The purpose of this is because under library code, a library is not allowed to issue a library card to someone who lives outside their taxing boundaries without collecting fees. And for years, the library and the school district have gone back and forth about finding ways to have students who live outside the city limits or this library taxing boundary to receive library cards. And those solutions have been limited in their scope and oftentimes come down to a fiscal discussion of the school district paying for library cards for students. The new library director came in and with kind of a new set of eyes and some information she had from her previous experiences said there's actually a way that districts are dealing with this, and that is looking at in-kind services. And so we sat down and for several months kind of tracked the in-kind services that the school district provides, and from that looked at the next steps in terms of providing library cards and library services for students who live outside that boundary. In that part of that process, and I will just say, Board Member Fisher did ask me some questions in the intermediate time about which students specifically were impacted by this agreement. And it is students who qualify for fee waivers, and the rationale for that is twofold. One is, according to the library's data, the students who are able to afford library cards who live outside the boundaries already do that. Their families come in and they register for library cards and they pay. And so the underserved population is the population who can't afford or doesn't want to spend their money on a library card when they might have other things that they have to spend their money on. And so the purpose of this is to make sure that any student who qualifies for a waiver can still get a library card under this agreement without having to pay the out-of-library district fees. I'm trying to be careful because when I say out-of-district fees, it sounds like school district, but they're within the Urbana school district boundaries, but outside the Urbana Free Library boundaries, taxing boundaries. That's the purpose of the agreement. I was also asked a question about numbers, and basically the numbers that we ran were from spring of 16 when we were sitting down and really working this out. With about 4,200 students in the district, almost 1,200, a little bit more than 1,200 students live outside the taxing boundaries of the library.
Wow.
And about 800 of those students qualify for waivers. So what we're talking about here is close to 800 students would be positively impacted by this and have the ability to access library services with the result of this agreement. So that's the purpose. That's the background. Probably more detail than I needed to go into, but since it has been a month,
Yeah.
I wanted to remind everyone. Any questions before a motion?
Okay, a motion would be in order.
I move acceptance of the intergovernmental agreement, MOU with the Urbana Free Library as outlined.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Member Carter?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. President Demmett?
Yes. Motion's carried. We're now ready to move into our district study topics, and the first this evening is our Latino Family Liaison Report. Lucy?
We're like a cheering section today here.
I have
Um,
a cheerleader.
Yeah.
So, Lucia Maldonado is our Latino family liaison, and I asked her to come and talk a little bit about the services that the school district provides to Latino families. Obviously, it's been our fastest growing student and family population for a number of years, and as you're all aware, board members, the success of our dual language program, I think, has contributed to the positive impact of the work that Lucia does on our families, but it also has not at all lessened the work. It's probably increased the work. I'll say that, and then I will let you take over, Lucia.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to, can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about my work. So I'm just gonna jump into it. I work mostly with Urbana Middle School and Urbana High School. In my role as Latino Parent Liaison, I help parents understand the school system, and I provide them with information to be better advocates for their children. I work with the schools to modify support systems and communication procedures to reach Spanish-speaking parents more effectively. I provide information for better understanding on immigrants' families' needs. This has been really useful in the last few months because there has been some changes in the way that immigrant families are feeling. I serve as emergency contact for families. That does not only include issues related to schools or education. Usually when families trust somebody and families initiate contact with somebody, they rely to that person for any other type of emergency in their family. So I hear about many different things that have nothing to do with education. I develop opportunities for parents to be informed and involved. I do this in collaboration with the two parent coordinators for the dual program. As you know, we have one at Leal School and one at Dr. Williams Elementary. And we facilitate partnerships between school and community organizations. And that has become really a great tool for me to be able to collaborate with organizations in Champaign and Urbana. In regards to communication, I translate written information, anything right from the beginning. All our registration, the whole registration package is available in Spanish. All the information from central office that parents need to register children is available in Spanish. During the school year, letters, information, field trip forms, anything that goes from middle school or high school to Spanish-speaking parents is translated. I do interpretation, verbal interpretation for meetings, especially during the school year for if meetings related to behavior sometimes, special education meetings, any other type of meeting. For parent-teacher conferences, we do hire additional assistants for middle school and high school. And I attend as many conferences as I can, but we do hire additional assistants on those 2 days. In the last few years for parent-teacher conferences, because I noticed that the number of parents attending conferences at the high school level was very minimum. A month or so before parent-teacher conferences, I start checking students' grades on Skyward. And if I see students that are struggling, I call their parents and I make sure that they sign up for conferences. I get access to the calendar to set up appointments for
teachers at the high school level. So I usually call parents, and if they are interested in attending conferences, I set up the conference for them right then when we are on the phone. I do a lot of phone calls. Sometimes it's just one per day. Sometimes it's quite a few, and the reasons vary from day to day. I do work with the outreach worker at the middle school and the high school. This year we started doing more work together, doing home visits and just working with families of students who were missing school. For parents who are not able to attend parent-teacher conferences or miss their conference, we set up time for them to come to the school and meet with their teachers during their team meeting. And I also work with the special education department. I interpret for IEP meetings and any other special education meeting. I have quite a few community partners. These are just some of the most important ones for me. I'm a board member of the CU Immigration Forum, and I'm also a board member of the Latino Partnership. Both are organizations that are working to create more welcoming communities for immigrants in general. There is also a group called La Linea, based on the University YMCA, and it's kind of like a helpline for the Spanish-speaking parents. When they have a need for information or assistance, they can call there. And I always, I'm in very close contact with them, so I'm always feel comfortable when I get a request for information. If I cannot help, I'm always feel comfortable sending them that way, because I know that they will receive the information they need. For the last 7 years, I've been bringing the Mexican consulate into town. They do have a mobile unit. They are based in Chicago, but they have a mobile unit, and I bring them once a year. They do provide passports and official ID cards. This is a very important service for the community. As you know, there are just very few things that one can do without an official ID, and many of the parents rely on the visit of the Mexican consulate every year to obtain to renew their ID or to get an actual passport. When we register kids in a school, parents bring those IDs, use that information and those cards as proof of residency for their children. Champaign County Healthcare Consumers has also been very useful, especially in the last 2 years, but I'll talk more about that in the forward. I use a lot of social media. I started using social media a couple of years ago, I think. I have different pages. Can I actually activate them? Oh, I see. Thank you. I wanted to show you. Oh, Lori, I don't know how to do this.
I think it's going.
It's not gonna go? And then what?
There we go.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to show you. I have for the district. I have a page where I use, and I think it's going to the page, where I post just general information for the public. I share some of the information that is posted on the district's Facebook page. Important dates, important events, that kind of thing. That is actually good information for everybody. I don't think it's gonna go, is it? How do I go back then?
Just hit that X up now.
Michael, sorry, I'm so used to math.
Yeah, I know once you're on something else.
Okay.
You're good. Completely.
Oh, that one. Thank you. So I'm sorry that you can't see this because I wanted to show you. I have also a Facebook group for Latino families, for Urbana School District Latino families. On that group, I post information that is more related to actual families and students. But I also post information that is important for them to know, and that I know that if we send a paper or a note home, probably some parents are not going to see it. One example is that one of the teachers noticed one time that some of the Latino students from Mexico were bringing to school hot peppers, and they were making a challenge to other. They were asking other students to buy them to see if they could handle them, and they were really, really spicy. They were the worst hot peppers that I know. And I know that I can post that information on that group, and I know that parents are gonna see it. And immediately I started getting comments back and from parents saying thank you, and let me know if my son is doing that. Another time I was driving to middle school, and I saw some of the students getting off the bus 2 streets before the school because they were going to the gas station. I went to the school and I posted that on social media, and the same day I got all their parents lined up. They knew that whose kids were doing it, and that didn't happen again. So it's been a really good tool for me to maintain communication with the parents, almost immediate communication with them, and I get a lot of responses. I have another group that is a private group, and nobody can see the information but people who are members of the group. And that's just to provide information about resources in the community. Some of the information that I post is just useful for Latinos. I post information about the police. I post information about immigration. I had a really good relationship with Chief Connolly until he resigned months ago. And he was always providing me with good information to post there. So it's becoming a really good tool for people to be informed. I have more than 1,000 members, Latino members from the area in that group. We provide a lot of information to help parents during transitions. The principal in the middle school organizes a curriculum night for families of fifth graders every year. And parents have a choice to go into a room with him and hear all the information in English, or they can choose to go into a different room and hear all the information in Spanish. I translate his PowerPoint presentation, so we go through this exactly same information, only in different languages. And parents have opportunities to ask questions. As you know, the sixth graders are the only students attending the first day of school at the middle school, and on that day we also offer an opportunity for parents to come and ask questions and meet with us. And again, they have a choice, Spanish-speaking parents have a choice to meet with me in a separate room and hear the exact same information in Spanish, or they can go into a different room and hear the information in English. For the transition from 8th to 9th grade, the high school counselors organize a family orientation night, and that's a bigger event. So we cannot do separate meetings, but what I have done for that meeting, I translated their PowerPoint. So as counselors go through the information with everybody, the Spanish-speaking parents have that PowerPoint in their hands in Spanish, so they can follow through with the information as is happening in front of them. I also work with families and students to help them doing the transition from high school to college. What is this now? I don't know what I had here. Parkland has a bilingual advisory committee, and I've been part of that committee for several years. We meet once a month just to brainstorm about services that they need to change to improve services for Latino students, and the transition, how to make the transition easier, and how to get more parents aware of the services they provide to students. Lori, you know what? Did I do something? I don't remember.
Oh, there we go.
I don't remember. I don't remember. Oh, I think it was just photos. Yeah, it was just a photo because every year I take the Latino seniors from Urbana High School to Parkland for a college tour. Most of the Latino students from our school, from our area, are gonna go to Parkland. That's where most of the Latino families, that's what they can afford, and that's what things are gonna change later on, because most of the students that are graduating now are citizens and they have access to more resources and federal funding and all that. But the students from the past, they didn't have that luxury. So most of them are at Parkland. And I take them to Parkland just to get an inside view and just to get them exposed. And every single year, the same thing happens. Many of the students, when we go there, when we're coming back, many of them said that they never saw, that they never went there before, that they never thought that college was that way. And they have an opportunity to do that, on that visit, to sit in classrooms. When before we go, I register each one of the students that is going. So when we arrive, the admissions counselor already knows who's going, and she knows exactly what they need to do to get there. And they get an opportunity to sit in a classroom for half an hour, so they can hear what they're going to be doing the following year if they decided to go there. So it's really a great opportunity for me to be part of that committee, or that bilingual committee, because it gives me an opportunity to keep up with the students that are there, and just to see them and catch up from time to time. We do a lot of, in collaboration with the two parent coordinators from the dual program, we do a lot of collaboration to organize family events, cross-cultural education and family involvement events. Some of the events, this is just a list of some of the events that we plan during the school year. They actually alternate the events through Leo and Dr. Williams, so parents have the opportunity to attend in each building, although the events are open to the whole district, but they alternate just to make sure that the parents in the buildings have access to them. We do the Dia de los Muertos, a winter festival, a multicultural festival, and a family picnic at the end of the school year. So I wanted just to show you some photos of, this is el Dia de los Muertos this year. They always have arts and crafts. Families are involved, they bring all the food and candy and different activities. We get organizations involved too, and they provide activities for the kids and the families attending. It's really a fun event. And it's not shown.
I looked it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Transfer from docks to TARP.
It didn't show.
Oh.
Okay. So
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Well, you see, that's a good one because you can see Dr. Owen there.
Yeah.
This is from the Multicultural Night. The Multicultural Night started years ago at Leo School, and at the beginning it was an event. I guess the idea was just to offer an event at the school, an opportunity for parents to see artists from the community perform in the school. And it was really good. We had really great artists performing in previous events. But one of the parent coordinators, Noemi Campos from Dr. Williams and I, for the last few years, we had the idea that we wanted something different, that we wanted students and parents actually participating and performing at this event. We wanted it to become a family event. And it really is becoming that. This year we have only students and families participating.
Great.
As you see, I invited this because many of the moms are involved in this group of Zumba, which is an exercise
Yeah.
group based on dancing. And as you can see, the principal, Scott Woods, is there, and Dr. Owen is on this corner because they were pulling to the stage to perform with them.
Nice.
We have parents setting up cultural booths to talk about their country. There is a lady there doing henna tattoos in the girls' hands. Those girls are from the middle school and the high school. They are from El Congo, and when they got the invitation to participate, they immediately jump on it, and they practice they only had like two weeks to practice, and only like 4 days in those 2 weeks. But they did an awesome job. There was a group of kids from Leo and Dr. Williams dancing, and kids are invited to bring their cultural dresses if they want to. There's another photo of the kids from the high school. And then there was a dad from Leo who belongs to this group, this photo right here, which I'm from Mexico, and I never saw that before. But they tell the stories based on through dancing. So they had music going on, and they were just dancing, and they wore those really, really heavy costumes. But it was quite interesting. And the night before of the event, we decided that we wanted to prepare tamales for everybody. So we invited moms to come with their daughters to prepare tamales. And it was really a great experience to see some of these girls that are very young, and they already know how to make tamales because that's something very common in their home. They do it for holidays with their parents and their families. So it was really quite a good event. Closer to the end of the school year, we organized a picnic, and we decided years ago to host the picnic at the area where most of the Latino families reside, which is Ivanhoe Mobile Homes, and it's been growing every year. We invite many organizations to on the side of the event, we organize a resource fair, and we invite organizations to come to the event and bring information to families. We invite them to bring information related to summer, to safety, just activities that parents can do or the family can do during the summer. So those are just some of the organizations that we had invited. Urbana Free Library is there every year. The Urbana Fire Department is there every year, and they bring their tornado house or a storm house, as they call it, because the kids get to learn that about the house at the school, and they get to learn what to do during a tornado, but parents don't know what to do. And I have heard several families who say that once the alarms go off, they stay in their mobile home. So when the fire department is there, they bring their house, and we allowed only adults to get into the house to learn what they need to do. The Francis Nelson, Champaign County Healthcare Consumer, Champaign Animal Control, years ago at those at that area, they have a huge issue with what do you call it? Feral cats? Feral is that?
Feral cats, yeah.
And nobody knew what to do with them, and they were really creating a lot of problems for residents because the cats were getting into the homes, in the lower area of the homes, and just chewing into electrical cords and stuff. So Champaign Animal Control was able to teach a number of families what they needed to do to get rid of the animals, to gut them safely and transport them to their office. We also invite groups that have, during the summer, host reading clubs or reading events for the kids. The Red Cross has been there too before, just talking to people about what to do, how to stay safe during a storm or tornado. MedCat usually has a table to teach the kids what to do when if they need to dial 911 to ask for help, and they have a pretend phone to teach the kids how to do that. Information about childcare after school, the Sheriff's Department, Urbana Adult Education, and Urbana Park District. I had some more photos there, but they're not showing. Because of the new election and the new president, we knew right after November, we knew that many families were really worried about their future. Many immigrant families and many Latino families were worried about their future. It wasn't long before kids started coming to school, sharing concerns with teachers and social workers about their families and about being afraid of being deported, and they're afraid of their parents being arrested. So the two parent coordinators that I took a training to learn how to organize Know Your Rights workshops, and we started doing that. On the first one, at that workshop, we learned what parents needed to do to be safe and to keep their families safe, and things that they needed to get in order to keep their family safe, their children. So we organized the first workshop at the school, and we decided to set up something small. We decided to do it small just to see what happened. We decided that each one of us was going to invite 10 parents. And so we were waiting for 30 parents, and somebody counted 120 parents who showed up. Because they really wanted to get the information. And I can honestly tell you, and I've been telling everybody this, that you could almost feel the fear in that room. Everybody was very quiet. They were not asking questions. They just heard the information very respectfully. But at the end of the event, when we were getting ready to for parents to start to create a guardianship letter, because that's part of the emergency plan, some of the parents approach us, and some of them crying, and some of them really, really concerned because they don't have any family here who can actually take care of their children in case something happens to them. So it was really eye-opening for all of us. But it was great to see that families really needed the information. And we continue providing the information. We've decided to do it in a smaller scale, in a more private environment. So what we're doing now is we're asking specific families in the district to invite us to their home and just invite a few of their friends so they can feel comfortable asking questions, because this is really important information that they need to know. We also wanted to offer parents an opportunity to just have a safe space and just to have some fun and create new friendships and and to know that they were not alone. So we organized, and again the photo is not showing, but we organized an open gym night, and we play soccer. And of course, at the beginning of December, it was really, really cold, and we decided to do it outside. But it was fun, and it was also interesting. Some parents showed up, and they just stayed on the sidelines. They just wanted to talk to others, and they just wanted to share their concerns. And some parents just got there and started playing immediately. So we're thinking that for the following year, we're gonna try to plan at least once a month an event like this. Do you have any questions until now? Because this is another layer. No? Okay. So I'm going to keep going then. I also work with unaccompanied minors. You will probably know that we have 19 unaccompanied minors in the district. 3 of them are at the middle school. The rest are at the high school. Unaccompanied minors, by definition, are students or children who arrived in the United States alone or are required to appear in immigration court on their own. They have no legal immigration status in the United States. They are under 18 years old, and they have no parent or legal guardian in the United States, or no parent or legal guardian that can provide care and physical custody. These kids really get here alone from their home country, and once they get into the area, they are really completely independent, and they are minors. We have 19 currently in the district. 18 were graduated. 18. So as you can imagine, these kids being completely alone, they have several needs. Most of them, all of them right now are from Guatemala, and in Guatemala, kids usually stop going to school after 5th grade. So some of them, most of them, when they arrive into the area, they have a big gap on their education. When they arrive here, they have no records of any education or no medical records. They have, so of course they need academic assistance, they need food, they need clothes. They have a huge legal needs. They are all with open cases with immigration, so they need legal advice. Most of them arrived with somebody that they know, but then soon after that they are homeless, so they have to find their own housing. They don't have access to any medical or dental services through the state, so they have to find a way to get their own medical and dental services. And they do require transportation because all of them are required to appear in court in Chicago every number of months. Some of them go every 2 months, some of them go every 6 months, but they do require transportation to appear in court. So this is one area where the community partners have been really useful. We have, of course, at the school, I can only say good things about the 21st Century program that had provided additional assistance, academic assistance for the students, but they also have access to the food pantry. We make sure that each one of the students sign up is on the list to receive, to get access to the food pantry every time that it's open. The social workers have provided to a lot of assistance, especially during the winter, getting coats and boots and additional shoes for them. I also collaborate with the Guatemalan consulate, and they had helped me get birth certificates and provide passports for some of these minors, even when they are not legally adults, to apply for a passport themselves. The Immigration Projects is another non-for-profit organization in town that provides legal advice, and they had been coming into the school to meet with each one of these minors privately, just for an assessment, just to let them know exactly where they are, what they need to do to get legal advice and legal help, where they can find an attorney, and that kind of legal assistance. And they do that free of charge for the students, and they do it right there at the school. The school health center has been able to provide a lot of the medical needs, and Champaign County Healthcare Consumers has been really helpful, especially with these kids, because like I say, they don't really qualify for a medical card. So we have to find different, and all of them have medical needs and dental needs. We have one student this year who had to have an emergency oral surgery. We had another one who had to have a foot surgery, and Champaign County Healthcare Consumers had been very graceful helping me get these students approved for an emergency medical card or for the CARL community care program, so they can get the services that they need almost immediately. These students rely on their bikes for transportation because they do work. Most of them work full-time after school, and they rely on their bikes for transportation. So when I saw them riding their bikes after school in the middle of downtown, on the side, not on the street, but on the I immediately knew that we had to provide them with more information because they didn't know what the rules here. So Champaign County Vice came into the school, and they actually organized a workshop for them and taught them all the rules and all the signals that I don't even know about. But now they know, and I didn't want them to get a ticket for not knowing how to ride their bike. Three Spinners is another group in the community who had been very generous. We just received very big donations from them, school supplies. We actually had to we fill out 2 trucks with backpacks and school supplies that they collected and donated to the district for the unaccompanied minors. So I'm pretty sure that next year, none of the students are gonna need to buy any supplies because we have everything. A couple of years ago, we started a fund because we knew that all of these things cost money. And even when some of these kids are, some of these organizations are providing services free of charge, we do have expenses. The students who have surgery needed medicine after the surgery, transportation. Sometimes we get volunteers to drive, but we pay for the gas and the parking in Chicago. So we have a fund to help with those expenses, and the Immigration Forum has been handling the money. I don't handle any of the money. Anybody who wants to donate, they always send the money directly to them. And when I need some money for to cover any of the expenses for the students, we have a process where I can get that refund. So I wanted you to have a face of some of these, to see a face of some of these students. These are just 4 of them. 2 of them are at the middle school. The other ones are at the high school. I can talk for hours about them, but for the sake of time, we're not going to do it. I also have a group on Facebook just to share information about them and updates about things that are happening. And some of them are sad stories, unfortunately. Some of them are good, really good stories and successes. These students are really strong, and I don't know how they do it. They are completely alone and completely independent, and they go to school and they work full time and they keep going. They have taught me a lot. I also rely a lot on assistance from community members. These are just some of the community partners that I have. Some of them are former Urbana School District employees, and they have done everything from driving students to appointments to pick up medicine, or taking students to Chicago or Indianapolis for legal appointments. Carolyn Skip came to the workshop because she to help with the information. So just different things, but they have been really helpful. So I'm not doing this alone. I rely a lot on help. This is one of them, the one that just graduated a couple of weeks ago. He came here 4.5 years ago. When he came here, his Spanish was not even as strong, and he has been completely alone from day one. There was many times in these 4 years when he wanted to quit, and he didn't do it. And he kept saying that he couldn't do it, and he couldn't do it, and he couldn't do it, and he did it. He graduated, and he participated at the ceremony 2 weeks ago. And now he kept saying before that he wasn't going to go to college. Now he's saying maybe I am going to go. So I'm pretty sure that he's going to go on, and we're going to find a way to do it. That's just for your information, some of the recent webinars and that I have attended in the last few months. I attend the National Immigration Conference once a year, and I learn a lot about what other the school districts are doing to be more welcoming and to provide services to Latino families and to unaccompanied minors. And those are just a tentative schedule for next year. We are planning on continue with the cultural events, and we are gonna increase information about reading for parents. At the beginning of the school year, I always leave a week or 2 open on my calendar for parents to come into the school and learn how to use a Skyward, and or just ask general questions, or just especially middle school parents that are still 6th graders that are still nervous about the transition. And this year we decided that we're trying to do something more formalized with including parents from elementary buildings too. And on September, we are gonna organize a welcoming event to celebrate the beginning of the school year, but also to celebrate, there is an organization called Welcoming America that hosts Welcoming Immigrant Week during the month of September, and we're going to participate on that, and we're thinking about having a soccer game again for the whole district this time, and we are all going to do it with families, with not only with Latino families, but families from other countries too. We already started working and talking to families from El Congo, and with the translator at the middle school that works with those families. So it should be a good event. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Lucia?
I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work, and
Thank you.
I'm very excited that you are keeping up with what is going on even outside of the school district, which I'm sure that helps you in your current position with the district. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was wondering, where do the unaccompanied minors reside? I mean, are there like host families who let them stay with them? You know, since they're young?
No, unfortunately, no. Once they, in order for them to get released from immigration detention centers, they have to have one person applying for their release. They're called
Okay.
sponsors. But the sponsors don't have any legal connections to the student once the student is released. They're supposed to, but there is nothing in writing that says that they have to.
Yeah.
So in most cases, once the students arrive here,
Yeah.
they are just on their own, and they, I don't know how they do it, but they find places to live, and they find jobs, and they become completely independent very quickly.
Even though they're 12 and 13 and 14 years old? I mean, they
The
find.
youngest one that we got he was 12.
Oh.
He turned 12 when he got here,
Huh.
but he lives with his mom. His mom was here already.
I see.
Most of the other ones, we only have 2 students that live with direct family member. All of the others are without any relatives, any family members here. So they just go around and ask, and I have learned that this community, the Guatemalan community, is very, very strong and very tight, and they help each other.
Oh.
So they find places. But we are looking into the possibility of finding churches or some safe places for them, because they had been several cases when I get a phone call in the middle of the night from a student who was just kicked out of the place where he was staying. It's been several. So they never really have a contract. It's just mostly verbal, and they do pay rent, and they do pay bills, and some of the landlords are charging them for even water. If they want to get a water bottle from the fridge, they have to pay for that. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
not really
sounds
an
good.
ideal situation.
And just the other question I wanted to ask you, I'm just kind of blown away with the array of services that you and your small office provides. And you talked a lot about the middle school and high school, because I understand that's sort of your main territory, so to speak. But the Leal and Dr. Williams, do the coordinators there provide similar services, you know, attend parent conferences and translate for IEPs and help with Skyward? I mean, do the elementary schools get similar levels of services for the Latino families?
Yes,
As you
but
described?
I think one of the main differences is that at the elementary school levels, they do have many teachers that are fully bilingual, so they don't require translators for parent-teacher conferences, for instance.
I got
Or
you.
during IEP meetings, I do imagine that at Leo, the social worker is bilingual too, so they don't
I
really
see.
need a lot of interpretation during meetings.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
they do provide a lot of assistance, and we are closer to the end of the school. Actually, this second semester, we started working more together to be able to provide the same information to everybody, and we're going to continue doing that.
Yeah.
During the summer, when all the services go away,
Yeah.
we decided we have a box at the middle school where we have information and flyers and brochures and same information that we usually provide when parents showed up asking for it, is there in case somebody needs that information and we are not available to meet them during the summer. The information is there. But I also go to the mobile home area at least once every month during the summer, just to catch up and just to
Yeah.
see how things are going, and just to see, just to check.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Lucia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we are ready for our final study topic this evening, which is a discipline presentation at the secondary level. And we're beginning, obviously, I can tell, with the middle school. So Scott, take it
All
away.
right, so I'm just gonna switch computers for a moment.
Sure.
I caught some errors on my PowerPoint, so I slightly changed them.
Change them on the fly.
Yeah. So welcome, hello.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm gonna pretend it's 9 in the morning. I do better in the
Okay,
morning.
that's okay.
So, there we go.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will come right up. Yep. Awesome. So I'm gonna, can you hear me? All right. I think I did.
Orange for tiger. Oh, there we go. It's a little flaky. Okay. There we go. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, okay.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to do a hopefully short presentation for you on a snapshot of discipline and our behavioral interventions at UMS. What I'd like to emphasize the most out of this time is that we're continuing and heading into year 3 of implementation of restorative practices out of a 5-year minimum for us to get this up and running. I think our data is definitely showing some positive trends in the areas that are most targeted for what we're trying to address with restorative practices, which is the areas of fighting and physical aggression. So as we go through this, on restorative practices, all students are involved in some way in restorative practices just as a universal system in things that we're doing with our advisory. We're planning right now to start in next year with a group of students that will meet daily as a leadership advisory. We've been doing student leadership groups now for the last 2 years, but we're looking to have it be a regular, everyday thing so that our teachers who are focused and dedicated to restorative practices the most, and they're not the only ones, but have a dedicated group of students that they'll work with so we can develop the skills in some of our students so they can actually lead these conversations among their peers. The other thing we're adding is social connections, and this is kind of parallels with our reading and math interventions that we've had in the past. Social connections is going to be led by our guidance counselors, one at each grade level, as well as Dr. Lebansky, and he's right back here. He's helping me plan this and working with some University of Illinois students in planning and implementing this program. So it's an area we haven't really done where we would have a structured intervention time as a class the same way that we do for reading and math. It's not a permanent intervention. Interventions are temporary, but it's giving us some structured time. We're planning to focus on students who have a high frequency of office referrals for disruptive in-class behavior. That's our target group. We're still planning that. I would say we're very early in planning that. So this year, Tracy Welch took over with restorative practices as our facilitator in the building. A lot of her job responsibilities is organizing and planning the conflict circles, which is I refer to this as the highest level in restorative practices. So this is, we have a serious conflict. We need to get together with the students and the staff involved and work through the process of trying to resolve this and be able to move forward. The other thing that's important to note is the process is about teaching the participants skills. It takes a lot of time if we do it well. And so I know this is an incredibly tiny slide or data pieces here, but I want to point out what we did was there were 194 different students who participated in circles during the year. So 20% of our students at some point did participate in a conflict circle. So there's lots of ways this data is presented, and it was more for us to get our heads around. It helps us know, are these circles with 2 students, 3 students? Sometimes they're really big. When it says 4+, I didn't ask Tracy what was the biggest one you did this year, but we've had some quite large ones. An area of, so we're reaching a lot of students with this. We are noticing that students know what it is. It's not punitive to go through a circle, and it's a way to try to solve problems productively. The area on this data that I see that is something that we need to address is we are still not where I had hoped we would be in terms of staff and students in circles together. Now, granted, staff and students aren't fighting, okay? That's not what we're talking about. But when there is some type of conflict, or let's say a student has repeated disciplinary issues in a teacher's classroom, we're still not getting a high rate of those staff with the student into some kind of restorative practices process. So I see there's for me, kind of a low number with 16 teachers, and we have about 80-some certified staff members in the building. So here's our discipline. So one of the ways we monitor discipline, obviously, is through our discipline referral data. So one, conflict circle data is, how are we resolving? How are we trying to proactively engage with students to prevent problems? Then there's behavior issues, okay? So the number I look for is students with 0, 1, or 2, and we should be hitting at least 70% of our student population is falling into that category. We're able to do that. I would love for it to be 70% of our population at 0 or 1, okay? Because that's the PBIS model, and that's the model that our elementary schools use. We're not at that point, but 57% of our students had no disciplinary infractions. And so 70% is kind of my internal target for, okay, our universal systems are good. That doesn't mean they can't be better, but we are hitting that 70% mark. So within restorative practices, one of our targeted areas was if we're reducing the large conflicts that result in suspension, so those tend to be physical aggression and fighting, are we also then going to be able to reduce in-school and out-of-school suspension? And yes, we had Senate Bill 100 that came into effect this year, but we had already been looking very closely at the frequency and length of in-school and out-of-school suspensions. So I don't think that our reductions in suspensions are just as a result of this. If I had gone back and shown previous year's data, we would see that we were also reducing the suspension, the number and the length also. So this is probably the most important areas to look at 2016, 2017. I have to separate out tardies because that's our number one issue. That is not, I shouldn't say it's our number one issue. It's technically our number 2 issue when I get to the next slide. But it's one of those things that's not classroom disruption. It doesn't result in out-of-school suspension. It's really, in the grand scheme of things, a minor behavior, but it's also a problem behavior because we need kids to be in class on time. So we look at all ODRs. So I'm just going to focus on the suspension. We went from 440 suspensions in 2015-16 to 156 this last year. I would also add we only had 2 suspensions that were 10 days for the whole school year. And in previous years, that number was very high. Of how many students had we used 10 days on? Yes, you had a question.
Yes, I just had a quick question for you. When you were talking about the tardies, I'm just curious, is that like in the morning for first class, or is that like all day long?
It's
class
not
to
the
another?
same as elementary school. Tardies for us is late to a class period. So a
Okay,
student
so it
can
could
be
at
tardy
any
8
time.
times a day.
Thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that, because I really was not sure about that.
Yeah.
So thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're asking me questions, okay. So that's a substantial reduction. We also, at the same time, reduced the average length of out-of-school suspension per incident. Now, in-school suspensions actually increased, but that's directly related, in my mind, to the use of in-school suspension for students who had these excessive tardiness issues. So I just want you to know that in-school suspension is not the first disciplinary option for students who are tardy. It's something we're trying to address, is how do we get to that issue of tardiness. So typically they've been assigned another consequence and they haven't served it. That's how they end up with the in-school suspension. But the length on the in-school suspensions has also gone down. They look like little numbers, but that's about 10% reduction in the length on those. Also, we did stop doing any out-of-school suspensions this year for tardiness. And last year we had 25. That was kind of a counterintuitive thing, I would say. Anyway. All right, top ODR offense by types. So the top 3 categories are the same. I think they've been the same for several years. And I want to explain these groupings. We transitioned this year from using Swiss, which is the PBIS system, to doing all of our discipline data in Skyward, which is what the high school does. So through that transition, we picked up different category names. So the category 1 is disruption, defiance, disrespect. The vast majority of these incidents are in classroom. So about half of our disciplinary infractions are happening in classrooms. Then we have tardies, and then physical aggression. And actually, in all of these categories, the number of infractions, or the percentage of infractions, did go down. So one of our big target areas, for instance, my evaluation goal is tied directly to this one, because I feel that fighting is something that is, when it happens, it's extremely disruptive, and it eats up time from lots and lots of people to try and address it and make sure kids are safe. There's a lot of parent communication that has to go on around these incidents. So we've really been working hard to address the fighting and physical aggression, and I think our 3-year trend looks very good. I wanted to also capture, so that you can see just plainly that the numbers have gone down each year, starting from when we started with restorative practices in 14-15. However, you can also, this row here captures student population. So these numbers also show a decline, but it also accounts for the fluctuation in enrollment from year to year, so I think that helps. The other area I think where restorative practices comes in is this idea of students with multiple fights or multiple incidents. And what I feel we're going to start seeing more in our data as we get further into restorative practices is if we're able to get to a kid when they've had their first incident and get them through a process, they're less likely to have another incident. So for instance, 3 years ago, I had 4 students with more than 2 fights. This year, I have 2. They're both 6th graders. I hope it doesn't happen again in 7th grade with those same 2. But it's not our 8th graders that have been in the system now for multiple years. It doesn't mean it won't be 8th graders at some point, but it's nice that our data is showing that. Behavior frequency, this is similar to what I've presented in the past in that we know it's a small percentage of students that make up a large percentage of disciplinary infractions. So what this is showing us right here is that 1.9% of our students account for 25%, almost 26% of all the disciplinary infractions. And those students had 40 or more discipline referrals in 1 year. Keep in mind, at the very first slide, though, 555 kids had none. Okay? So conclusions. Our universal systems continue to work for at least 70% of our students. I did not put slides in here this time about our racial disproportionality. That continues to be a challenge for us, and I would say that last week at our school improvement planning retreat, the Unified Professional Development, this was the primary focus of what we're planning into next year, is what are strategies around student behavior that we can put in place that are good for all kids, but also specifically look at racial equity. We have seen significant decreases in our out-of-school suspensions, and then we've seen a decrease also in the length of out-of-school suspension and the length of in-school suspension. We have not seen an increase, or we have not seen a decrease in the use of in-school suspension. We also feel that, and our data shows this, and it did last year, but targeting a relatively small number of students should yield a pretty big result. And so that's why this year, going into next year, we have this social connections class ready to go, or it will be ready to go. It's not right now. It will be. And that's targeting some of those high-frequency students and getting them more structured, positive interventions. So these are the things, those first 2, the leadership advisory, social connections. Another thing I want to share is that we will be starting a school safety committee. This is something that's recommended through the federal government, through the Department of Education on their Stop Bullying program, is that you have a standing group of parents or family members that is a school safety committee, so it'll be a committee of parents that will look at discipline data, review policies, make recommendations to school administration about UMS. Lastly, we do have some targeted goals, so you're going to make me next year come in and say, did we meet these goals? Okay. So we're going to continue to look at reducing the number of ODRs, but specifically looking at the category of disruption. That's our largest category. That's half of our referrals. So what can we do in working with staff and students to reduce disruption referrals? We're also targeting students who have a high number of referrals. That's the second one. And then the third one is to continue to look at the physical aggression and continuing on that one. So the physical aggression one and fighting has been one we've had in place for the last 2 years, and we have met those goals the last 2 years. So we're looking to continue on with that one. All right, questions?
I had a couple.
15 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
I'll go quick. Sorry.
No, 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 go ahead.
One question that I had was, are you going to continue using, are you currently using the second step program? Are you using something different, or?
Second step is one of the curriculum programs that we use in advisory.
Okay. And then for the school safety committee, I think that's great that you're going to have that. How are you planning? Are there any qualifications for people to be on that or anything? And will like the school social worker be involved, or any of your administrative staff from the middle school?
At this point, it's me.
Okay.
And the qualification will be you have to have a student at the middle school.
Okay.
Okay. When I've done parent advisory committees in the past, we will bring in the staff members based on what our topic is.
Okay.
So if the group says, hey, I want to know what social work supports are available, then I know I need to bring in the social workers.
All right.
And have them be part of it.
And in this data, this was like overall, it included special ed students?
It's all of our
and,
students, yeah.
You know, whatever, racial, everything. Okay.
979 this year.
All
Walk
right.
through the doors.
Wow. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Scott?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, thank you for all the good information. You know, you were talking about the number of students who participated in restorative circles and the number of adults, certified staff. And you just mentioned that there were fewer certified staff than you would have guessed, 16 out of 80 or something like that.
Mhm.
What are possible reasons for that? Why there would be fewer?
I was
so
just
few?
talking about that with Elaine today, and she's here. But
Hello.
we have more staff that are going through the preparation process, and then we're not continuing with it. So sometimes the preparation process is all that folks need to get to a better place about whatever the problem is.
Huh.
I also think one of the possibilities is we're not actually capturing that data, because a lot of our teachers have had a little bit of training on this, so they are trying to do it on their own, perhaps.
Okay.
So we've talked about what we need to do to make sure that teachers know it's an option. Students might want to request it as an option. That was a specific thing we had in mind for the end of year 2, is that teachers and students would know how to request them. I think students know how to do it for student-to-student conflict, but when a student perceives a conflict with a staff member, it's different. Also, I think there's a concern on the part of staff that it may be somehow punitive towards the staff member to go through the process. And we're working to overcome that. I mean, I think that's just a natural inclination that,
Yeah.
you know, this kid behaved badly in my class, why do I have to spend my time
Yeah.
and go through this? And I think more and more we have teachers that understand the rationale for that. So.
But it's kind of a
And it's not forced, so I guess that would be the other thing. We've dabbled with the idea of, if a staff member were to meet a certain, I call it a trigger, where let's say they've written a referral 5 times on one student, do we require this to happen? So once we require it, it's not voluntary. We, in our building, all of our circles are voluntary.
Yeah, I see, okay.
So.
Is the training super time consuming? I mean, when you say that they haven't completed the training, is it?
I would say, and Eileen might jump in any moment now, is that she would say, yes, you need a lot of hours of training to be qualified to do this. So, but to facilitate a circle conversation, I went through a couple days in the summer with Elaine, and I've worked on doing them with social worker and doing them with Tracy Welch and with Steve Higgins, and I'm probably not the person to do something extremely complex. So we have a lot of and that was in the data too. We have quite a few other staff members that facilitate these conflict circles, but we're not, like, I don't do them on my own yet, me personally, and that's the case I think for a lot of our teachers to help when they're facilitating. I'm talking about facilitating, not being a participant.
I see.
Okay.
Distinction there. All right. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just had one more thing. What do you do basically to, if anything, to prepare some of the fifth graders who will be coming into your middle school? Because it seems like there's a lot of disciplinary issues. I know in the beginning everybody signs the handbook and, things like that, but do you do anything specific to let these fifth graders know, what the, boundaries are, or,
Yes. So
sorry, I
a
didn't
lot.
get
No,
it
no,
out
no.
there,
It's a fair question, but the transition from 5th to 6th grade is challenging. It's not challenging just at UMS. This is a kind of a big area of research in the middle school world. Anytime kids transition from one school to another, there are issues that come up with acclimating the students to the new school, learning new rules. So, the biggest issue that 6th graders have is freedom. And teaching kids how to manage freedom when they're 11 years old is probably at the root of a lot of the disciplinary issues that we get, that they're not being walked to the library and walked from class to class. And so, yeah, we do a lot with that. That's going to fall much more under our PBIS framework in terms of lessons and, how do you walk on the right side of the hallway? We do lessons on how to use the bathroom. So a lot, yes.
How many minutes are actually between classes?
This year there are 4.
4? Okay.
So, yeah, and it's one of my highlights when I meet with the 5th graders is demonstrating good behavior in the hallway and then demonstrating bad behavior. So
Right.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else for Scott? Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Woods.
You're up, Matt.
During this transition here, I would like to more formally introduce and highlight Elaine Schmungen. Wave, Elaine. You all remember her when she did her restorative practices, and her partner, Mikhail Lubansky. Did I do an okay job with that?
Yes.
And her daughter, Rachel.
And their daughter, Rachel.
Thank you for being here.
So it's a family night out at probably one of the longer board meetings of the year. So we appreciate that. It's been full of content, which is good. But Mikhail also specializes in restorative practices and is in the Department of Psychology at the university and is doing quite a bit to support the middle school and high school as well. And I'm going to add one more thing in here because this kind of got at a question. One of the things that we're looking at doing for next year in terms of our vision for restorative practices is piloting for 1 or 2 of our elementary schools so that we start working with elementary students as part of that process and transition to make transition smoother.
I had a quick question, Don. Do the elementary schools, do they still use Swiss, or are they on Skyward now?
No, they're using Swiss for their elementary data. It provides more nuanced detail in terms of suspension, not suspension, but discipline referrals and interventions.
Okay.
And the middle school and high school, I think, have done a great job of implementing data digs with Skyward, and so it's just a little bit different way of looking at data.
Right,
So,
thank you.
Yep. And so Matt, I'm going to introduce Erin Ludwig, who is primarily doing the presentation tonight. She is a dean at Urbana High School, but she will soon be assistant principal at Urbana High School, pending board approval at the next board meeting. So welcome, Erin, and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
So nice preview of
Yeah, we got all this.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting us come and speak to you tonight. We're excited to share some of the positive trends that we've seen this year and also some of the steps that we're taking to address things that we've looked at in our data dig that Donovan spoke about. So the first slide that we have is the 2016-2017 referral and suspension data broken down by grade level. And so what you'll see in the columns are the different years in school, and then in the rows you'll see breakdown by alphabet. That's actually how we break down student caseload in terms of the deans. So it is very helpful for us as deans as we look over trends to break down those numbers as well. In the shaded corner, so what you'll see, each cell has multiple pieces of information, and so I provided kind of an example. So the shaded cell represents the 9th graders that I worked with this year. You'll see in there the referral data that 55 freshmen produced 197 referrals, and then 9 freshmen produced 17 suspensions. So we do have students who are receiving multiple referrals or multiple suspensions, much like the middle school spoke about as well. You will see down in the bottom right-hand corner our totals. Our totals are down from last year, which we were happy about. We are down 444 total referrals for the year, and we're also down 53 suspensions. And so we've seen a positive trend there. Our target group, according to this data and just in general, as we sit and talk about our student goals, are the freshmen. That transitional period is also difficult from 8th grade to 9th grade as well. And you'll see on the bottom that they represent 40% of our referral receivers and 48% of our suspensions. One positive thing, and we wanted to shout out to the middle school about this because we think that it represents, thanks. We think it represents the good work that they're doing with restorative practice as well, because when students are coming to us, it's not the first time that they have been, I guess, introduced to the idea of conflict circles, and it's not the first time they've been asked to own their behavior in that way. And so if you look at our 2016-2017 freshmen compared to the 15-16, you will notice that they have 397 fewer referrals and 28 fewer suspensions. And so we do think that that is a good representation of how restorative practice is making a positive impact on multiple levels in the district. This is our referral breakdown by race. So much like Mr. Woods spoke about, we do see the same concerning data trends here when we break it down by race. We have our highest group of students receiving referrals, 67% are African American students. But when we seek to address that at our building, we find it very helpful to break it down by gender as well, because what we have at the school are some targeted supports that we can use with different student groups. So we've identified, and this actually came up in our professional development last week as well, that a lot of these are engagement issues, that their students are feeling disconnected to the school or to the classroom, and so we can target interventions to engage them because we know that a more engaged student has fewer discipline problems. Some of the things that we've done specifically in terms of addressing needs, our social worker and our counselor ran 2 Sparks groups that were provided, I guess, intensive socio-emotional support in a small group setting, and we did a boys group and a girls group this year, and that ran through 21st Century, and that was one way that we were able to use this kind of data to say, what can we specifically provide to student groups who are feeling disconnected from what we're trying to do here as a school. At the Equity PD last week, we also talked about how to use the structures that we have within the school to engage different student groups. We had a great discussion on the first afternoon about using student mentors that represent a diverse snapshot of our student population to then kind of show incoming freshmen that we do have successful, fun student things happening in the building, and it's a great place to buy in. So we have structures like homeroom and study support that would be easy times to kind of use student voice to talk to other students and not take them out of academic classes, and we're excited for that opportunity. Another breakdown that we have that we did as reported in Skyward is the referral breakdown by SES. So we, out of our 46 referrals, 343 were students who are in Skyward reported as low SES. Our top 3 behaviors are similar to what they've been in past years, with our number 1 being cell phone and electronic devices. Our second would be class disruption, and our third is failure to serve detentions, and I'll talk more about that in a later slide. But this data in Skyward actually coincides well with the initial look at data from a needs assessment that we sent out at the end of the year. We sent a needs assessment out to our faculty, staff, and students and asked them what their perceived problem behaviors were. And a couple years ago, we did this as part of PBIS, and it was interesting because the students reported a different perception than the teachers and the staff did. But so far on this, they're right on, and it pretty much matches this. Students report more profanity than class disruption, but it's very close. That's what they've identified as an issue, which as a dean makes me giggle, because I talk often about the profanity in the hallways with them.
I just have a quick question. So with cell phone use being one of the top 3 behaviors, what happens, let's say in a classroom, if a child is just on their cell phone the whole time, texting someone, what exactly does the teacher do? Could you just run through a scenario?
Well, what we're trying to do, and we also started this discussion at the end of the year and kind of created some Google forums to do it, but teachers have the autonomy to have a classroom policy that they want in their room. So it's different from classroom to classroom.
All right.
And one of the things that, talking to different staff members and to students, is to see if we can come up with a way that the teachers still have that autonomy, but that is communicated in a way that I guess that's easier for the students to navigate amongst them. And also, when they get referrals, the deans code the referrals. So the referrals come in as other, and then we pick the coding. One discussion that we started to have at the end of the year was, there is a difference in a student who has their phone on their desk and has been asked to put it away and refuses to do it. Because what they're doing really is a refuse of a direction, more so than just having the
authority.
phone. Right.
Yeah.
And so we don't have that breakdown here in the differences, because some teachers, their policy is if they see the phone on your desk, you're going to get a referral for that. Other teachers will not go as far as to write an office referral until there's been multiple times that they've refused a direction. And to me and to the other deans that we kind of spoke to, it's a little different in terms of what consequence then would be appropriate for that behavior.
And also, on the flip side of that, what happens if a teacher is on their cell phone, let's say the whole time during class, not really using it appropriately, looking up things, texting people, teachers do that too. So what happens in that situation?
Okay, so we've had that on occasion where kids have reported that, and then we have a discussion with a staff member about those kind of things. I also want to say, though, is what is perceived and what is actual sometimes don't match up. We have some teachers, especially in physical education, where they're not by a computer or whatnot, that sometimes are on their cell phone, and the appearance of doing this is actually taking attendance. That they're taking attendance through Skyward on their cellular device. We also have classrooms that I've gone into where there's lots of kids out with their cell phones because we're also doing a quiz that is on the board and stuff like that. So it's
Right,
I
or
think-
group
I think-
chat sometimes
right,
with
those
other
kind of things.
kids in their class.
There are some kids that, again, I think Ms. Ludwig put it really well, is that it depends by classroom, because we have kids, and this one freaked me out, is we have kids that are writing papers on their cell phones because their thumbs can move faster apparently than typing. So I mean, and they're actually, and I have another kid who was in a classroom where they're reading the book based on their smartphone and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Well, I could see where that could be a problem,
I think
because
the issue that Ms. Ludwig brought up is one that we need to consider as a high school, of how we break down the cell phone violation a little bit more, because because of the variety of ways they're doing it, I think we need to dig into that a little more.
I agree, because
but
there's a lot of gray areas. I mean,
there is. Absolutely. And-
especially going from one classroom to another.
But I would also argue
You know.
that that is no different than our society. It's why the state of Illinois passed a law that you can't be on your cell phone while you're driving. If you go to the bank or the DMV, you can't. They have a cell phone with a line through, because even as adults, we can't figure out that sometimes it's good to put the cell phone down and not be using it. So we're working on those strategies, and we've talked to kids about different strategies of how we can do that. And I think it was referenced in our graduation speech.
Teachers have also been very willing to share their in-class policies, and I have multiple teachers who've sent those along. So we have a manual that we use, a class teacher help manual that kind of lays out kind of norms and recommendations from veteran teachers to new teachers in terms of how to navigate building, and we hope to work that into that, because the last time that was modified, this wasn't necessarily the concern it is now. Right. So if you look at this, oh yeah, no problem. From 2013 to now, you will see some things that keep coming up. So the cell phones were always an issue, but in the last 2 years, they've been our #1 in Skyward. And you'll also see classroom disruption come up multiple times. Missing from this year's data is the skipping, but the failure to serve detentions does represent that same skipping and attendance concern, because the structure of the high school is you get a detention is part of a consequence for skipping. And so what we're seeing in our detention report are students who are skipping multiple class periods, getting multiple detentions, and then not serving them. And much like the middle school said, we don't suspend students for not coming to school, but we continue to have conversations around what's the best way to motivate them to get here. And I think it goes back to the same thing we've talked about with the equity training and engagement in class and things. You know, what do we need to do to draw them back in the classroom more and have them see that that is really where they need to be and what the benefit is. And that's why I'm very I guess, grateful for Lucia Maldonado and everything that she's done in terms of helping us communicate with students who school may be hard to get to for many other reasons, and trying to then help and support them. And she's really opened my eyes to all the different reasons that a student may not be coming to school. So I do appreciate her being here tonight too. So this slide has two different sets of data. So the first 4 columns are the suspensions, and the second 4 columns are expulsions and the trends in the last 4 years. You will notice that our suspensions have gone down significantly, and as our expulsions have. They went up last year, but I guess the aside would be the duration of those were lower. And I was a dean that year as well, and I will say that I felt that I was doing fewer suspensions this year, and I think it has a lot to do with restorative practice, being able to kind of set the groundwork in middle school, and that these students now have heard it for a number of years, so they don't just expect to go home if they have a concern, and that's not necessarily what's going to happen. We will make time to have those conversations before the end of the day, notify the parents as a way to keep them in school, and utilize our in-school suspension room as well as needed, but because there's 3 of us, we're able to negotiate those conversations before we send students home. And we did only have 1 expulsion hearing this year. The number of suspension days continues to go down as well. This shorter suspensions are, again, in addition to the use of restorative practice. More often than not, if there's a peer conflict, the students now are starting to expect that they're going to be asked if they want to sit down with that person. Sometimes we do it on the phone. We will have a dean and a student in one room, in one office, and a dean and a student in the other, and if they're not ready to see each other face to face, but they still have things they need to say, we will conference call them. That has been a very valuable tool because it still gets the feelings out there, and it respects their want not to necessarily sit in the room with someone. So it is voluntary. Doing circles is voluntary. So we used conference calls a lot this year, and then eventually that leads to, more often than not, they were ready to sit down together. Or this would be easier to do in person. I had a student say to me this year, and I said, that's fine, we can go do it in person. So I'm seeing that kind of represented in our decrease in suspension days. We only had 1 or 2 students who hit the 10-day mark this year. So overall, I think a thread that I know you heard with the middle school, but then with us, is the positive use of restorative practice. It's beneficial and essential to what we're doing at Urbana in terms of discipline and attendance concerns. One aspect that Travis Corson and I plan to work on in the upcoming year is restorative practice has deemed very, very successful and beneficial in the discipline realm. And he and I are going to work together to also kind of extend that more into the academic realm as well, because again, engagement impacts behavior. So if we can get down to the root causes of what's causing a student not to be engaged in a classroom through restorative practice, we will also continue to lower our discipline numbers. Restorative practice leads to increased ownership in the students' accountability to others in the school community. I ran a number of, I can't even tell you how many teacher to student circles we did run, because we do a lot of that, and a lot of teachers will ask, can I speak to that student before they come back into my classroom? So that's even becoming part of what the teachers are requesting, and the students as well. There was one young man that Mr. Stark worked with me on to kind of get him in the circle mindset before he spoke to his teacher, but he did a great job once we got there. So the students are asking to speak to their teachers in that way as well. And again, I think that's good that the building blocks are being put together at the middle school. It also gives opportunities for more informed and direct interventions on our part. So as we look as a support service team to address concerns and engagement and behavioral, we're able to, through restorative practice, know more about our students and have better perspectives holistically on their lives so we can better target interventions.
I'm just curious, roughly, have you had restorative circles with parents, and if so, about how many, and have you had to give the parents like a training or anything before they go in and sit down? Or have you even did that?
I believe we did not run, as school officials, run a circle with parents where
You mean just parents or
just,
parents and
yeah.
Parents and students, like when you have to call a parent in with a student.
Like a parent, a student, and a staff member, we've had those.
Yeah.
And when I ran those, I did do a sort of prep on the phone with the parent to kind of explain to them how the process of communication was going to work.
Okay.
Because, one of the big aspects of a circle is everyone needs to be heard. So
Right.
understanding that everyone's going to have a chance to speak, and then I'm going to ask you to reiterate. I have done that with parents. We've asked, I think Elaine did one where there were student-to-student conflict that then had parents involved as well. And us as school officials did not want to do that because we weren't sure we had the proper training. I'll let him take that.
Okay, and so, but I think that one of the things to be clear on is the training piece of this is how to help facilitate it on the
Right.
circles and stuff. But by doing the preparation ahead of time to kind of, as Erin was talking about, is to kind of go through things and explain things, how that's going to go. That's the, if you want to call it the training piece of before going into the circle. So the exposure to more and more of this gives you the skill set to be able to do that. But there doesn't need to be, the training that Elaine and Mikhail do is really about facilitating the circle keepers to help us be in a position to do those kind of things. So it does not take very long, and there's some simple circles that can be taking place that it doesn't take very long for the kids to figure out, or parents or adults to figure out how to go through the process of it. But it does take adults a little longer.
Right. Have you had to do very many with parents or not? Has it been like less than a dozen or?
Yes, yes.
All right. I was just curious.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
one interesting thing that our students are also doing is, as a dean, I represent a certain amount of punitive nature of my job, that they will ask for some of our teachers who are trained as circle keepers to be part of it as well, because they feel like it's a safer environment to speak their truth. Although as the deans, we do a lot of them during the day, but we have a good, strong group of teachers also who are willing to step in even when it's a difficult situation, and be willing to come talk to us ahead of time to get our perspectives on it before then leading the students in an environment that they feel safe in.
The last slide.
Other question? Oh,
Yep. Any other
sorry,
questions?
you had one more slide, sorry.
Oh, no, that's the last slide.
Yeah, I thought that was it. Any other questions for our high school team?
Yeah, I did want, you talked about it, and I imagine, how restorative circles work well with when students have conflicts with other students, and I guess it just never occurred to me, but it makes total sense that there would be restorative circles requested by students for a teacher, or vice versa, student staff member. Is that, can you just talk a little bit more about that? Because I'm just, the kinds of issues that come up that get resolved between a student and a staff member, are there typical kinds of things, or are they far-ranging, or, what's the scope?
I dealt with all sorts of interesting different ones, but I think a lot of the time, when a student comes in and proactively asks, when a student is requesting it, they feel as if a classroom norm is being exercised on them more than someone else, or they have a concern about a grade that they feel like they need to ask some clarification on. I've seen a lot of students who wanted to call a circle with a teacher because they felt like if they had a discussion in front of other students, it wouldn't go well. In the fact that you wouldn't be able to talk as candidly as they'd like. But sometimes they feel like, I think I had a young man who always felt like his teachers were telling them to put their cell phone away and not anybody else. That wasn't the reality of what was going on in the classroom, which I knew because of other students I'd worked with, but that's how he felt. And I was proud of him that he felt like this was a good way to ask that question rather than to have a class disruption that then could have resulted in a referral.
Sure. Are they a large proportion of the restorative circles? would you say, half of your restorative circles are staff student, or are the majority of them student?
I would say most are student-to-student,
Uh-huh.
student-to-student conflicts, but as our students become more comfortable with restorative practice, they naturally go to this as a way to help facilitate conversations.
I think that's excellent.
And I think the student staff one, though, I think the reason that restorative practice is such an important piece when it's student to staff is it takes it out of the environment of the the classroom environment, and it really gives it a separate place, and has a person that's, you know, that they truly listen to. And I think our, because of the training and things like that, have responded very well to explaining. A lot of times it's miscommunication or misunderstanding or those kind of things, or, you know, when you do this, this really upsets me. I didn't know that upsets you. You know, that's, you know, and so it really gives an opportunity to kind of work through things, and just does that skill set to be able to work it out. So.
It's been really helpful for each party to see the human aspect of the other one. It's been really astonishing for some students to hear that they actually hurt a grown-up's feelings. You know, and to have staff that's comfortable saying that to a student, you know, I felt hurt when you acted this way. And then the student has to kind of work on that. I think it's a great life skill to realize how your behaviors impact other people, and we have staff who's willing to do it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I noticed you also had the category staff and staff. Do those conflict circles get requested often?
Not often.
Yeah.
And I will say there's, they are probably the most challenging, because in a staff-to-staff circles, there's a power dynamic that exists in a lot of sense, and that's really been one of the areas that we've continually talked about with Elaine and Mikhail, is that's how do we get past that. And so those have been more difficult, I think, especially when it's involved admin, or if it's involved, you know, in some cases a TA or whatever. I mean, there's been some of that. So those have been, I won't say there's some that have gone well, but there's some that have not gone very well. And I think adults are a tougher group.
Yeah.
We are.
We are, that's right.
Kids do a better job.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Can I just ask, following on, that question was, do you feel that maybe some of the resistance from the adults is that they feel that if they request a circle, that it might reflect poorly on their performance, or, you know, their reputation, or whatever might be said about them?
It runs the whole gamut, I think, and some of them, I think the biggest thing about all of this is, I think there have been a couple circles that have been run that I have actually recommended, hey, why don't you guys do a circle? The staff felt pressure like they had to. And I think the voluntary nature of it is a key element of that, and that was never the intent that they had to. It was just an opportunity. And one of the things when we first started this, and I think is very important to remember, is there are lots of ways to try and resolve things, and restorative practice is one of those ways. But even restorative practice doesn't always work. I mean, you know, those things, there's just some things that don't always click. And so keeping that in mind is that it's just that this has clicked really well. I mean, overall, we have some really good results from that, and we were in a good place to be able to do this. So,
Thank you.
All right, anything else for the team? Thank you, both of you. All right. Moving on, we do have a call for a future special meeting next Tuesday evening on the 13th for purposes of closed session for purposes of student discipline, speaking about student discipline. Superintendent's report.
I will try to go very quickly here, but a couple big shout outs to track athletes.
Yes.
And actually I should be careful. I don't know if they're technically track athletes or if they're technically field athletes. I was always a runner and never a jumper. And when we talk, I could make all kinds of great analogies. It's almost 10 o'clock at night about, you know, jumping to new heights and things. But we have 2 state champions this year. And yeah, so Diamond Asia Taylor, who jumps without any supports and defies gravity just by sailing through the air, almost set a state meet record for Class 2A, but she got to 5 feet 8 inches high in the high jump. So congratulations to Diamond Asia. She could jump over me. So that's pretty impressive. Is Diamond Asia a freshman? Is she a freshman too? I thought she was a sophomore. She's a freshman too. So think about that. If we have a freshman state champion, and then in high jump, and then in pole vault, we have a freshman boy, Tyler Carell, who not only did something that less than 3 freshmen can do in the nation, and that is cleared 15 feet in pole vault, but he cleared 15 feet 10 inches at the state meet as a freshman, which is almost unheard of. He's now ranked 3rd nationally in the pole vault. So not only do we have a state champion, but we have a national ranked. I'm sure that Diamond Asia is probably ranked pretty close to that in the nation as well as a freshman.
I
So
think Tyler's #1 freshman, #3 overall for all.
that
high
is
school
probably
students.
what it is. He's probably the number one
He's
freshman.
#1 freshman.
Pardon me? Broke the school record, yes. Well, I'm pretty sure that Diamond Asia broke the school record as well. And so, amazing. Overall, the boys and girls track teams had an amazing year. The girls especially, they went to state as a team, finished 6th overall as a team. They had a number of top 3 to top 6 finishes. And it's just an outstanding season. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more about them as the year goes
We might
on.
have those 2 individuals at the next meeting.
We could try. We might do that in the fall when it's easier to round up students than on June 20th. But we'll see what we can do. Just a couple other quick things. I do want to give a shout out, since it's been mentioned a couple times, to our racial equity leadership team and our professional development team. Our racial equity leadership institute last week, 2 days, the mornings were completely voluntary, and we had over 210 individuals show up for our morning PD. And in the afternoons, we transitioned to our school leadership teams for school improvement. And they took the learning that they had in the morning and applied it to kind of their equity lens for their school improvement planning. And so that was very powerful 2 days of workshops, and I appreciate we had 3 board members that were there to participate in some or all of that time. And so shout outs and thank yous to Peggy and Ann and Brenda. So it was nice to see the 3 of you there. Real quickly, I could go on and on about Senate Bill 1 and our efforts to fix the formula. There's been more work done in correcting the inequities in Springfield in terms of school funding than I've ever seen in the past, and yet we still don't have a budget. And so we'll just keep our fingers crossed and look forward to great things happening in Springfield over the next couple weeks. I also just want to say we have a lot of things coming up this summer, and so I'm going to try and limit the things that I want to talk about to what's coming up before the next meeting. So I wiped a bunch of things off my list here, and I'm just going to talk about the fact that this Saturday, Urbana Pops, which is one of our partner organizations, is performing their first summer concert at Urbana High School in Cobb Auditorium at 7 p.m. That would be Saturday, June 10th. Thank you. Yes, this Saturday, June 10th, 7 p.m. in Cobb Auditorium. And one of the things that's unique about the Urbana Pops is they're a professional organization that reserves a certain number of seats for Urbana High School students to participate along with the professional musicians. And so it's a great opportunity to see our student musicians. It's a great opportunity for them to see kind of mentors who are professional musicians in their craft. The theme for this concert is Cartoons in Concert. And so they're taking musical repertoire of animated, I guess classics and contemporaries over time, and we'll be translating that into popular music. So come out and see that. That'll be a lot of fun. And I will stop there and leave it open to the board, and it's before 10 o'clock.
Board reports. This is real good. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. We are adjourned.